You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou, and yes, I am alive. I thought I was only going to be taking like a day off from making videos as I went away for the day to celebrate my girlfriend's birthday, and then it turned into me ending up very sick the last few days. So I ended up missing the picks video for the USFL, which I did make my calls on Twitter. If you don't follow me on my social medias, I have a Twitter, I have an Instagram. You'll see them scrolling through at the beginning of the video. They are also linked in the description. Follow me on the socials if you want to interact with me more on there and see what I'm up to. But yes, I ended up being real sick. I'm still not feeling 100%. I'm probably like 85% right now, I would say. I'm still kind of congested and everything, but I got slapped with like a 2-day flu, and I'm doing better now, but it was definitely a rough couple of days. I even worked an overnight while I was sick before I realized how sick I was, and it was an absolute disaster. But we're here today. We're doing power rankings for week number 9 of the USFL. The playoffs have been officially decided. There's a lot to talk about. So, as always, if you are a fan of the USFL, comment down below what are your power rankings. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's get ready because we are just 1 week away now. Week 10 is up next, and then following that, the playoffs will be hosted in Canton, Ohio for the USFL. All 4 teams are determined. We'll talk about them as we get to them in these power rankings, but let's discuss. Starting in at number 8, they have been my number 8, and please bear with me. My voice is kind of shot. Pittsburgh Maulers. They have been the definitive worst team in the league for quite some time, and what a mess this team continues to be. I will say they do deserve a little bit of credit defensively for giving the Stars as many fits as they did this past weekend, but overall, 4 turnovers on the offense. They had a couple of fumbles, a couple of interceptions. Just a team that cannot move the ball. I just don't really have a lot of faith in Kirby Wilson at this point to lead this team any further. Obviously, he's probably going to be the head coach for 1 more week, and then I would be shocked if the Maulers retain him after the way this season has gone. But overall, just a sad kind of slow trod to the end of the season, I would say, for this team here. 1-8 now. They've been eliminated for the playoffs for like 2 weeks or something like that. But again, I will credit the defense. They slowed down the Stars' aerial attack, considering how aggressive and how successful it's been the last few weeks since Case Cookus even took over. Before that, it was Brian Scott, and then it was Case Cookus who followed right up after it. I do want to give credit where it is due. The team was pretty stingy on defense, but overall, just another overall disappointing performance from the team that sits at the bottom. Then sitting at number 7, they slipped down a spot here. I am looking at the Michigan Panthers, who just, again, more of getting in their own way, basically, and throwing games away, literally. 3 turnovers with a game-sealing interception at the end. No Reggie Corbin really kind of spelt the end for this team here. They averaged altogether 3.1 yards a carry off 17 carries for 53 yards on the ground. It was just not a good day for them. The passing was a roller coaster. They got 3 interceptions between Love and Barrier, a combined 26 of 45 for 286 yards. There were 3 touchdowns thrown, but again, paired with those 3 interceptions, you're basically 1 step forward, 1 step back, not really getting anywhere in neutral there. But it was somewhat close. I'll give them credit. The game was probably a little bit closer than it actually should have been. The general struggled with special teams, but aside from that, I do want to give the defense some credit there for slowing the Generals down and kind of working that running game to their favor, because for the majority of this season, the Generals have been able to impose their will on the ground, and the Panthers did a really good job slowing that down. They do slip a spot because they're, again, just more of getting in your own way. And coming in at number 6, a team that probably should have been in this spot for a while now, but I was just really concerned about their offensive inabilities, and especially without Clayton Thorson and Mark Thompson, I was really worried. But Mark Thompson did reemerge, did not have a great game, but overall, the Houston Gamblers, man, they got it done. They upset the only undefeated team in the Birmingham Stallions, and credit where credit is due behind Kenji Bahar and a litany of running backs. Kenji Bahar was 16 of 24, 164 yards. He had a touchdown. He had 36 rushing yards on the ground as well. 200 yards on the dot total for the day for Bahar, considering how rough I would say his debut was last week. For him to come back this week and bounce back and have as good of a game as necessary for the Gamblers to be able to defeat the Birmingham Stallions, Excellent showing by him. The special teams, man, they came to work, though. The stars of this game, special teams. Nick Vogel, 3 for 3 on his field goal attempts, and then couple that with JoJo Ward, who had 4 returns for 151 yards total. He had a long of 58 yards. Special teams was the savior for this team today, and I mean, just an absolute, an absolute surprising upset. This is not one that I think anyone really saw coming, and in the back of my mind when I made my picks, I didn't really put too much time and effort into deciding. I kind of just went with favorites and my gut feeling on a lot of them because, like I said, I've been so sick. Didn't really have time to crunch numbers and kind of compare the teams and do what I normally do to kind of make my picks. Would I have picked the Gamblers over the Birmingham Stallions? Probably not, but if there was an upset to have picked, I probably would have. I would more than likely believe that the Gamblers had the best shot of pulling an upset, one, because of the offensive issues that Birmingham seems to be dealing with the last few weeks, but also, again, the Gamblers team, very aggressive at turning the ball over, and, despite being such an aggressive team and turning the ball over frequently, they only had 1 turnover, but they had it when it mattered most, got the job done. They're sitting at 2-7, and now my number 6 team in the power rankings. Then coming in at number 5 to round out the bottom 4 teams, we have the Tampa Bay Bandits, who are now sitting at 4-5, officially eliminated from the playoffs. It was a win or go home scenario, and it was an absolute disaster offensively as they just turned the ball over 4 times throughout the games. I have the drives written out here in order from beginning of game to end of game. They went punt, fumble, interception, punt, missed field goal, so even special teams, then a touchdown, turnover on downs, interception, turnover on downs. An absolute disaster of a game. I mean, like I said, win or go home, and you probably put up the worst offensive performance of the season for your team. And it's just a tough way for this team to kind of go down with playoff hopes on the line. They were a season favorite coming into this one for the season, and just a very weird year because you had Jordan Teamu and hopes were high, and you selected all these guys from big name schools and NFL experience and just big game experience from where they were coming from, and you got what you got this year, and it was weird. It was weird. It felt like, because like Teamu had like 286 yards, but they just could not get out of their own way to pull out even another score or something like that before the final touchdown that they did late in the game. And again, I mean, interceptions, fumbles galore. It was just an ugly way for the Bandits to go down. It is what it is. They're sitting at number 5. It's been a rocky season for them, some highs and some lows and some really low lows, but eliminated from the playoffs officially, as the playoffs have now been confirmed and decided for. Then, talking the top 4 teams in the USFL right now. Coming in at number 4, they finally clinched a playoff spot. They're sitting at 6-3. They are your final playoff team, the New Orleans Breakers. The defense, my goodness, came to work in this game against the Bandits here. 3 sacks, 14 tackles for loss. They had 9 pass breakups, a couple of interceptions, a couple of forced fumbles. I mean, listen, credit to the offense. They got 17 points put together, in the second quarter there. And, if obviously they didn't do that, this game could have looked differently. But the defense deserves all the credit in the world for the win in this game. They completely manhandled the Bandits' offense from start to finish. 14 tackles for loss is ridiculous. I mean, the offense, like I said, they showed up in some part during the second quarter, put together a few drives. Zach Smith even came in for a couple of drives, and he was able to lead them to 10 points there. I will say I'm still concerned about this team offensively. I don't really understand why Kyle Sloter was pulled and then brought back into the game. I don't know what the decision-making was on all of that, but I would like to find out more regarding that whole situation. Like I said, I was really sick. I was kind of in and out watching the games, then I had to go back and watch the highlights last night after the final game was over to really kind of get my bearings on what exactly was going on, because I would be lying to you if I didn't say that I was literally like watching the games and also passing in and out of sleep as I was falling apart through whatever it was that I had, because I still have no idea what I had. It wasn't COVID. I took 3 tests and they were all negative. I don't know. But Breakers sitting at number 4 right now. I'm comfortable with them being as the bottom of the 4 playoff teams. And then moving into number 3, we're looking at the Philadelphia Stars, who clinched their playoff spot last week. I will say that this was a humbling game for a surging Philadelphia Stars team. They've been sitting at the number 3 spot now for a couple of weeks for me. And listen, I don't know what was going on with that O-line, but Case Cookus, no pun intended, was being cooked behind that offensive line. He was getting smoked by some of the hits that he was taking during that game. 5 of 13, 62 yards and an interception. He was getting demolished. And then, Costello came in afterwards and did not really inspire too much as well. But leaning on running back Matt Colburn was the key for the success here. Like I've been talking about the last few weeks, this team finding a balanced attack has been the best thing for them, and the biggest reason why I say that they've kind of emerged as one of the top teams in the league right now. Colburn himself, 12 carries, 97 yards, touchdown on the day. He basically dug them out of their grave there, where they were potentially going to falter and take a loss here. And while the loss wouldn't have really decided anything because they're in the playoffs, that's a momentum killer. And the fact that they were able to find a way to win and lean on the running game despite the passing game that has been so good all season long kind of disappearing, massive win for them. I look at this more as hopefully like a blip for the team and not necessarily a sign of things to come and, getting completely shellacked by the Generals come playoff time. Then sitting at number 2, they've been here for a couple of weeks, and, I stated my reasons why when I dropped them to number 2 last week, and I'm going to stand by them again this week. The offensive slowdown now has dripped into week number 3 for the Birmingham Stallions. This is not the same team we were watching the first, before the last 3 games, I guess you could say, however many that was. 6 games prior to that? Only 4 offensive touchdowns in the last 12 quarters of play for this team. 3 weeks, 4 scored touchdowns compared to the 8 field goals that they've had to go after. An inability to finish drives or even get close to the red zone and are taking long field goals at that. There's something going on here. The run game this week specifically struggled, 24 carries, only 78 yards altogether, but I'm a little bit concerned. The defense continues to be the backbone. They're doing their thing. The Birmingham Stallions have been the most resilient team this year. They have dealt with some pretty crazy stuff up and down in terms of just injuries and having people come in and step up and still winning games and winning really tight matchups in games where you thought, this is going to be the week the Stallions go down, but this was by far their worst offensive performance, and you have to be a little bit concerned. Jamar Smith was solid, wasn't a bad game, wasn't a great game. It was kind of up and down, but there's a little bit of concern, and there's a reason I have them at number 2 right now, and it's because something is going on offensively where, like I said, 4 touchdowns in the last 12 quarters for them. Something is not right. Things are not clicking, whether it's injuries, I don't know, just whatever it may be. Something's going on with the Stallions, and they're not looking like that team we saw the first, 6 weeks prior to this week's loss. Now, at number 1, only team that's left, the New Jersey Generals. Close game here. Probably closer than it should have been, but they are sitting at 8-1 now. I think at this point they have kind of established themselves as the number 1 team in the league. I understand the Birmingham Stallions have beaten everybody and they're 4-0 against playoff teams and all that stuff. I get it. But, I mean, they're hot at the right time. Their offense, did it slow down a bit? Sure. But was their game tight against the Panthers? Sure. But that was more because of special teams than anything else. They had left 8 points on the table from missed field goals and extra points in this game. Realistically, the only reason it was as tight as it was because of that. Darius Victor, for whatever reason, only 7 carries. He had 19 yards total. Trey Williams had 11 for 62. So the ground game, not necessarily quite what it's been. Like I mentioned when we were talking about the Panthers, they kind of held the running game that's been fairly dominant in check this week. But overall, it was solid on the ground, I guess you could say, at worst. And then Luis Perez, 10 of 16. He had 92 yards and a touchdown as well. Deandre Johnson, kind of a sloppy-ish kind of game for him, too. I saw people on Twitter kind of calling for him to get pulled when I was looking at the general social media during the game because they're saying he was costing them the game and everything like that after he threw his pick. But Kavonte Turpin's first quarter touchdown proved to be massive here, where special teams kind of faltered. In one spot, they were really good in the other. Turpin bringing back a kick return for a touchdown. I've got to say, this team does a really good job of, even when they're dealing with like inefficiencies in one place, kind of filling in and making up for it in another spot. And right now, the Generals just feel like the hottest team in the league at the moment. The Birmingham Stallions are right behind them. Don't get me wrong. I don't know. Again, maybe the offense has been figured out and they're not really fooling teams anymore. I don't know, but the Generals at this point in time just feel like a team that I would be willing to bet money on and put my stock behind as the team to come out on top once playoffs get rolling here. I really feel good about them at the moment. I like them at number 1, but I would like to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. That is my power rankings for week number 9. I will be doing my best this week to crank out as many videos as possible for you guys. I know I missed a ton of time last week, and I want to make up for it. So just be ready. We got more draft grades coming your way. Picks for week 10s are coming up, and I'm planning some other stuff as well as we get set for USFL playoffs, and I'm getting close to the end of my draft grades. So I got a bunch of new content as we kind of roll through the remaining boring portion of the NFL offseason. Hopefully things start to pick up here. I do have some ideas in mind that will start to roll out and get going soon. But that's it for me. Appreciate you all for watching. I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.